The air inside the human military base was cold, yet the room where Lyrina sat felt heavy and tense. She was not human. Her skin was a soft silver blue, and her bright violet eyes glowed faintly in the dim light. Metal cuffs locked her wrists to the chair, and a tall glass wall separated her from the rest of the room. The humans called it the containment chamber, but to her, it was a cage outside. Human soldiers walked past without looking at her, their boots echoing on the steel floor. She didn't understand why they kept her here, only that they feared her. She had been captured during a skirmish on the edge of their territories, and now they were studying her like some rare animal. On a metal table in the corner of her chamber, she saw strange objects. There were vials, tubes, and glowing bottles filled with liquids of different colors. One of them, a small glass vial, shimmered with an intense blue light. The humans had left it there earlier after some kind of test. On its surface, there was a strange symbol, a black skull over a lightning bolt. She had never seen that sign before, but she guessed it meant danger. Still, her throat was dry, and the thirst burned in her mouth. The humans had not given her water yet, and the glow of the vial seemed to pull her attention again and again. Lyrina's kind were naturally curious, and she had already learned that humans sometimes drank strange liquids to make themselves stronger. She thought maybe this was one of those drinks. Maybe it could help her escape. When no soldiers were watching, she leaned forward, straining against the cuffs. Her fingers brushed the cool glass of the vial. It was warm, almost alive, and it seemed to hum softly in her hand. She uncorked it with a quick twist. The smell was sharp, metallic, almost electric. Her heart raced as she raised it to her lips. Without thinking further, she drank. The liquid burned as it slid down her throat. It was like swallowing lightning. Her chest tightened, her skin tingled, and her vision blurred. The cuffs on her wrists felt colder than before, but her body felt hot, too hot. Her heartbeat thundered in her ears, faster and faster. She gripped the edge of the table to steady herself. The light in the room seemed brighter, the sound of boots in the hallway louder. Every breath felt deep and sharp, like she was breathing in fire. Then came the strange part. Her muscles felt stronger, her arms heavy with energy. But along with that came another sensation, a deep, powerful urge she couldn't understand. It was not pain, not hunger, not thirst, but something more primal. Her breathing grew heavier, and her body leaned forward, drawn toward the sound of footsteps outside the chamber. The door opened, and a human soldier stepped in. He was young, with short brown hair and sharp eyes, wearing the black and gray uniform of the base. In his hands, he carried a metal tray with food and water. He looked up at her and froze, her eyes locked on his, and she felt a strange pull inside her chest. Her skin grew hotter, and she could hear his heartbeat from across the room. The smell of him, clean, warm, alive, filled her senses. The soldier's name was Ethan, though she did not know it. Yet he stepped forward carefully, placing the tray on the table. "Here," he said quietly, "you need to eat." But Lyrina barely heard his words. Her hands trembled, her legs pushed against the floor. Something inside her demanded she get closer to him, touch him, feel the warmth of his skin. Ethan noticed the faint blue glow running through the veins in her arms. His eyes narrowed. "What did you—" he started, but before he could finish, she moved. The cuff strained as her arms jerked forward with unexpected strength. The metal groaned, and Ethan stepped back in shock. Her violet eyes blazed brighter, her breathing faster. The serum was changing her, and it was happening quickly. She felt stronger than ever before. Every muscle in her body buzzed with energy. She wanted to stand, break the cuffs, and close the space between them. But a part of her mind, still clear, told her this was dangerous. Something was wrong. The burning inside her chest and stomach was too intense, too wild. She gritted her teeth and tried to resist. But when Ethan took another step back, fear flashing in his eyes, her body leaned forward again without her command. Outside the glass wall, 2 more soldiers appeared, looking in. One of them shouted something and reached for a weapon. Lyrina's gaze stayed locked on Ethan, as if the others didn't exist. The heat in her blood, the pounding of her heart, the glow in her skin, all of it grew stronger. She knew she had drunk something forbidden, something made for humans, and whatever it was, it had awakened something dangerous inside her. Ethan took one last look at her, his jaw tight, and then stepped toward the control panel. But before he could reach it, the room lights flickered. A low alarm began to hum through the walls, and Lyrina's eyes narrowed, somewhere deep inside. She felt the urge to move, to break free, and to reach him, no matter what stood in her way. The alarm in the base grew louder, a slow pulse of red light flashing across the walls. Ethan turned his head toward the sound, but his attention kept being pulled back to Lyrina. Her breathing was heavy, her violet eyes locked on him with an intensity that made his skin prickle. She was still sitting in the chair, but her body leaned forward like a predator ready to leap. The faint blue glow in her veins had grown brighter, tracing lines under her silver blue skin. Ethan didn't know what she had drunk, but he could see the change in her. Her muscles seemed more defined, her posture stronger. She looked like she could tear through the steel cuffs at any second. He raised his hand slowly, as if calming a dangerous animal. "Stay still," he said in a low voice, but even he could hear the uncertainty in his tone. Inside her mind, Lyrina felt the heat spreading. It pulsed with her heartbeat, each thump sending waves of energy through her body. Her senses were sharper than ever. She could smell the faint oil on Ethan's uniform, hear the small clicks of the weapons the other soldiers carried outside the glass wall. But most of all, she could hear his heart, steady yet quick. That sound alone pulled her closer in her chair, her fingers tightening around the armrests. She didn't understand this feeling. It was not just strength, it was a need, an urge. It made her skin burn and her thoughts blur. When Ethan took a single step closer, the feeling doubled. It was as if her body recognized him as something vital, something she could not let go of. The second soldier outside tapped the glass and pointed at Lyrina. "She's glowing brighter. What's happening to her?" he said, his voice muffled through the wall. Ethan didn't answer. He had seen alien prisoners before, but none like her. There was something in the way she looked at him, not like prey, not like an enemy, but like he was the only thing in the room that mattered. Lyrina's hands shifted, testing the cuffs again. The steel bent slightly. Groaning under the pressure, Ethan's eyes widened, and he moved quickly to the control panel, typing in the emergency lock sequence. But before he could finish, she spoke for the first time since he had entered, her voice low, almost trembling. "Don't leave." The words caught him off guard. Her accent was strange, but her meaning was clear. He looked at her again, and the way she stared back made his chest tighten. She didn't blink, didn't look away, as if any distance between them would tear something important. The alarm outside grew louder, and voices shouted orders down the hall. The base was on high alert, maybe an attack, maybe a security breach. But Ethan's instincts told him this was about her. Something in the system must have detected the change in her biology. He stepped toward her slowly, placing his hand on the table between them. "What did you drink?" he asked firmly. Lyrina's gaze dropped to the empty vial on the table, then back to his face. Her lips parted, but instead of answering, she tilted her head slightly. "I feel different," she said softly, "strong and hot." Her hand twitched as if she wanted to reach for him, but forced herself to stop. Ethan's mind raced. The blue vial. He had seen it before in the restricted lab. It was a human military combat serum, designed to give soldiers short bursts of extreme speed, strength, and focus. But it was dangerous even for humans, for an alien. There was no telling what it could do. And now he was seeing the result. Suddenly, she shifted in her chair. The cuffs snapped with a sharp metallic crack. Ethan stepped back instinctively, his hand moving toward his weapon, but she didn't attack. Instead, she stood slowly, her glowing veins pulsing like liquid fire beneath her skin. Her movements were smooth, almost graceful, but every step radiated power. "You shouldn't be standing," Ethan said, trying to keep his voice steady. She took a step toward him. Her eyes locked on his. "I can't." "Stop," she whispered, her voice almost pained. It was not a threat. It was a confession outside the chamber. The other soldiers shouted and banged on the control panel. Trying to override the lock, Ethan knew they would storm in any second. If they saw her free, glowing, and this close to him, they would shoot her without hesitation, and yet, she didn't feel like an enemy at that moment. She felt like something else entirely, something drawn to him in a way he couldn't explain. Lyrina stopped just in front of him, the heat from her skin radiating in the cool air. She tilted her head slightly, studying his face. Her breathing was uneven, her voice low. "You smell alive," she said, as if the words themselves were strange to her. Before Ethan could respond, the glass wall shattered as the soldiers outside forced their way in. Lyrina's head snapped toward them, and in an instant, her body moved faster than he could follow. She positioned herself between Ethan and the soldiers, her stance protective. The glow in her veins flared brighter, and a low, dangerous growl escaped her throat. Ethan froze, realizing the serum hadn't just made her stronger. It had made her attached to him, and whatever was happening, it was only going to get stronger. ***. The room was filled with shouts, boots pounding on the steel floor, and the sharp hum of charging weapons. Ethan stood frozen, his eyes darting between the soldiers rushing in and Lyrina standing in front of him. She moved with a strange tension, her body half-crouched, every muscle ready to spring. The faint blue glow in her veins pulsed like the beat of a war drum. Her eyes, however, never left him, as if his safety was the only thing that mattered. "Stand down," one of the soldiers barked, raising his rifle toward her. But the moment the weapon was aimed, Lyrina's head snapped toward the man. She bared her teeth, not in a human smile, but in something far older and more primal. In a blur, she stepped between the soldier and Ethan, her arms swinging out. The rifle was knocked from the man's hands and slid across the floor. Two more soldiers raised their weapons. "Shoot her," one shouted, but Ethan reacted first. "Stop," he ordered, his voice sharp. The soldiers hesitated, their fingers on the triggers. "She's not attacking us," Ethan added quickly, though he wasn't sure if that was entirely true. Lyrina turned her head toward him, and in that moment, her fierce expression softened. The burning inside her didn't fade, but her breathing slowed. It was as if his voice alone could cut through the storm inside her. She stepped back slightly, giving him space, but her body still angled toward him like a shield. "What's wrong with her?" One soldier muttered under his breath. Ethan didn't answer. He didn't want to explain that she had drunk a serum meant only for human soldiers. He didn't want to admit that he could feel her focus on him like a heavy weight. It was more than just physical protection. It was as if she had chosen him, claimed him, and now nothing else existed. The lead soldier motioned to the door. "Command wants her in the high-security wing. Now," Ethan frowned. "She's not stable. Moving her now is dangerous." But the order was firm, and the men began to step closer, forming a half-circle around her. Lyrina's eyes narrowed again, her gaze darting between them and Ethan. When one soldier reached out to grab her arm, she reacted instantly. Her hand shot up, gripping the man's wrist with crushing force. The sound of bone straining filled the air, and he cried out, dropping to his knees. "Let him go," Ethan said quickly, moving closer. Lyrina hesitated, her grip tightening for a second before she released him. Her chest rose and fell in sharp breaths, her eyes returning to Ethan like a compass finding north. "I don't want them near you," she said softly, her voice carrying both threat and fear. Ethan felt a chill despite the heat radiating from her skin. This wasn't just a side effect. The serum had linked her instincts to him in a way that was growing stronger by the hour. She didn't just see him as a person. She saw him as something she must protect, and something she needed. Command's voice crackled over the radio, ordering immediate transfer. Ethan knew if they took her now, she might break free, kill someone, and get herself shot. He made a quick decision. "I'll escort her myself," he said firmly. The soldiers looked uncertain, but none of them wanted to be the one to drag her through the base. Finally, they stepped aside, weapons still in hand, watching her every move. Ethan walked toward the door, and Lyrina followed without hesitation. Her steps matched his exactly, her gaze sweeping the hallway for threats. Every time a soldier passed too close, she subtly moved between them and Ethan. It was almost unnatural. Like an invisible thread kept pulling her to him. They entered a quieter corridor, the hum of the alarm fading into the distance. Ethan glanced back at her. "You need to control yourself," he said quietly. "If you hurt anyone, they'll kill you." Lyrina's expression was unreadable, but her voice was calm. "I will not hurt them. Unless they hurt you." He didn't know what to say to that. Part of him wanted to believe she was capable of reason. Another part feared she might snap at the slightest threat to him. The serum was making her stronger, faster, and dangerously unpredictable. As they approached the secured wing, two heavy steel doors loomed ahead. A guard at the checkpoint eyed them suspiciously. Before he could speak, Lyrina stepped forward, her gaze locking on his weapon. Ethan quickly touched her arm, the first physical contact since she had broken free. Her skin was hot, almost feverish. She froze at his touch, her violet eyes widening slightly. The heat inside her spiked, but she didn't move. It was as if the simple act of his hand on her arm had stopped every violent instinct in its tracks. The guard let them through, the steel doors sliding open with a deep mechanical groan. Inside, the lights were dim, the walls lined with reinforced glass cells. This was where the base kept its most dangerous captives. Ethan guided her toward an empty one at the far end. She followed silently. Though her eyes scanned every corner of the room, when they reached the cell, Ethan turned to face her. "Stay here. Do not move until I come back," he said. For a moment, she just stared at him, as if memorizing his face. Then she stepped inside without protest. But as the glass door slid shut between them, her voice carried through softly. "You'll come back?" Ethan hesitated. "Yes," he said finally. "I'll come back." Her gaze softened, and for the first time since drinking the serum, she sat down calmly. But deep inside, Ethan knew the bond between them was not fading. It was growing, and soon, it might be too strong for either of them to control. ***. The silence in the high-security wing did not last long. Somewhere deep in the base, a dull rumble shook the floor, the lights flickered, and the distant thump of explosions echoed through the steel walls. Ethan looked toward the hallway, his instincts already telling him this was no drill. Another blast followed, closer this time, making the glass of Lyrina's cell vibrate. She was on her feet instantly, her glowing veins pulsing brighter in the dim light, her eyes locked on him. "Through the glass, what's happening?" she asked, her voice low but tense. Before Ethan could answer, the alarm system switched to a sharp, blaring tone. The base was under attack. A metallic voice rang out from the speakers. "All units to defensive positions, enemy forces breaching. Outer perimeter." Ethan's stomach sank. Enemy forces meant only one thing. Lyrina's people had found the base. They were coming for her, and if they reached this wing, the soldiers would try to kill her before letting her be taken. He glanced back at her, seeing the mix of hope and fear in her eyes. She wanted freedom, but not at the cost of his life. Steel doors at the far end of the hall slammed shut as lockdown protocols engaged. Two guards rushed past Ethan toward the main security terminal. One shouted, "Hold your post. They're cutting through the outer gate." The other was already calling for reinforcements. Another explosion rocked the building, and this one made dust fall from the ceiling. Ethan knew he had seconds to decide. If Lyrina stayed in the cell, she'd either be gunned down or dragged away by her people. If she came with him, he'd be defying direct orders and possibly risking his life. But something deep inside told him to trust her. He moved quickly to the control panel, entering the override code. The glass door slid open with a sharp hiss. Lorena stepped forward immediately, but instead of bolting for the exit, she stopped in front of him. "You're letting me out?" she asked, her voice softer than he expected. "I'm not letting you go," he replied. "I'm taking you with me." The moment he turned toward the hall, she followed, staying close enough that her arm brushed his. As they moved, soldiers shouted orders all around them, the sound of gunfire now joining the chaos. A squad of human troops sprinted past, heading toward the main gate. Ethan grabbed a sidearm from an abandoned weapon rack and handed another to Lorena. She took it without hesitation, her fingers curling around the grip as if she'd been holding human weapons her whole life. They reached the first checkpoint, but it was already in ruins. Smoke filled the air, and the walls were blackened from plasma fire. A human officer lay unconscious beside a destroyed console. Through the haze, Ethan could see movement. Alien soldiers in dark armor advancing through the corridor. Lorena stiffened, her instincts pulling her toward them. But she didn't move, not until Ethan did. He fired a short burst, forcing the first wave to duck. Behind cover, Lorena moved like lightning, sliding across the floor and returning fire with pinpoint accuracy. The serum inside her made her faster, sharper, almost untouchable. Within seconds, 3 enemy soldiers were down, and the rest began to fall back. "We don't have much time," Ethan said, reloading his weapon. "They'll send more," Lorena replied, her voice steady despite the chaos. Her gaze flicked to him briefly, as if checking that he was still unharmed. That small glance told Ethan everything. She was not fighting for her people right now. She was fighting for him. They pushed forward through the damaged hallways, the sound of battle growing louder. Each turn brought them closer to the emergency escape tunnels. The tunnels were rarely used, meant for critical evacuations, but they were the only way out without crossing the main battlefield. As they reached the tunnel entrance, an explosion ripped through the ceiling ahead. Flames and debris rained down, blocking their path. Ethan stumbled, the shockwave knocking the weapon from his hand. Before he could recover, an alien soldier dropped from above. Weapon raised, Lorena moved faster than thought, slamming into the soldier with enough force to send him crashing into the wall. Her eyes blazed with blue light as she pinned him, the growl in her throat deep and animal-like. "Lorena!" Ethan's voice cut through her rage. She froze, the weapon still in her hand, then slowly released the soldier, who collapsed unconscious. Her breathing was heavy, her gaze returning to Ethan immediately. She began but stopped, shaking her head. He didn't need her to finish. He knew what she was fighting against inside herself. They climbed over the burning debris and entered the tunnel. The air inside was cooler, quieter, though the distant sounds of battle still echoed from above. Lorena stayed just behind him, her hand brushing his back every so often, as if to confirm he was still there. The tunnel stretched on for hundreds of meters, ending at a small maintenance hatch. Ethan pushed it open, revealing a dark forest outside, the night air thick with the hum of search drones. Lorena stepped out first, scanning the trees with sharp, glowing eyes. "They will search for us," she said. "Both your people and mine." Ethan nodded. "We'll have to move fast, keep low." For a moment, they just stood there, the forest shadows wrapping around them, the distant glow of the burning base behind. Then, without a word, Lorena reached for his hand. Gripping it tightly, he didn't pull away, and together, they disappeared into the dark. Asterisk. The forest was alive with movement, every rustle in the leaves, every distant hum. Could be a soldier or a drone. Ethan moved quickly but carefully, his boots sinking into the soft earth. Lorena stayed close behind him, her steps so light they made almost no sound. Her hand still held his, her grip firm, as if letting go would be the same as losing him forever. The night air was cool, but Ethan could still feel the faint heat radiating from her skin. The serum's glow in her veins pulsed softly now, hidden under the silver blue of her skin. Her violet eyes scanned the darkness, catching the faint red glints of drone sensors. Far above, they're searching both ways, she whispered. Your people from the west. Mine from the east. Ethan stopped for a moment, crouching low behind a fallen tree. The sounds of movement echoed through the forest, metal footsteps, heavy and precise. 2 human search teams passed nearby, their lights sweeping the trees. Lyrina tensed, but Ethan placed a hand on her arm, silently telling her to stay still. Her breathing slowed, her gaze fixed only on him until the patrol was gone. They moved again, weaving between thick trunks and low branches. Lyrina's senses were sharper than Ethan's. She could smell the faint oil of machinery, hear the quiet buzz of energy weapons charging far in the distance. Every time she sensed danger, she would pull him to a stop, her body instinctively shifting in front of his. It was no longer just protection. It was instinct. The serum had anchored her completely to his presence. After nearly an hour, they reached a shallow stream. Ethan knelt to drink, cupping the cool water in his hands. Lyrina crouched beside him, watching the ripples with a strange expression. You are tired, she said softly. I can carry you. Ethan gave a short laugh, shaking his head. I'm fine, but thanks. Her lips curved slightly, but the moment didn't last. The distant roar of an aircraft broke the quiet. They both looked up through the canopy. A large shadow passed overhead, its lights cutting through the forest in sweeping arcs. That's not human, Ethan said, recognizing the sleek, curved design. Lyrina's expression tightened. It's a scout ship. Mine. The ship slowed, hovering just above the treetops. Searchlights burned through the leaves, and the hum of its engines grew louder. Ethan grabbed her hand again, pulling her into a deeper part of the forest. The beam of light passed dangerously close, and a voice in an alien language called out from above. Lyrina's grip on his hand tightened almost painfully. They know I'm here, she said, her voice trembling slightly. They will not leave without me. They moved faster now, dodging between trees until the noise of the ship faded. Finally, they stopped in a small clearing where moonlight spilled across the ground. Ethan turned to her. Why not go to them? They're your people. Her gaze held his without wavering. I don't trust them. Not with you. Ethan wasn't sure how to respond to that. There was no doubt in his mind that she could go back to her people right now if she wanted. But something about the way she stayed close, her eyes always tracking him, told him she had already made her choice. A sudden rustle in the underbrush pulled their attention. From the shadows, 2 human soldiers stepped out, weapons raised, hands up. One of them barked. Ethan froze, raising his hand slowly, but Lyrina didn't move. Her eyes narrowed, and her body angled protectively toward him. Don't, Ethan said quickly to her. They'll kill you. One soldier stepped closer, his weapon aimed directly at her chest. Move away from the alien, Lieutenant, he ordered. Ethan shook his head. She's with me. The soldier's voice hardened. She's a hostile, sir. She's coming with us. Lyrina took a slow step forward, her eyes locked on the man holding the rifle. Ethan could almost feel the heat building inside her again. He stepped in front of her, blocking her view. Run, he whispered to her. When I distract them, her eyes widened and she shook her head sharply. No, I'm not leaving you. Before Ethan could argue, another sound split the air, the whine of alien plasma fire. A blast struck the ground near the soldiers, sending them sprawling from the trees. 2 of Lyrina's people emerged, their armor gleaming under the moonlight, weapons raised. The clearing became a deadly standoff, human soldiers on one side, alien warriors on the other. Ethan stood in the middle, and Lyrina stepped forward to join him. Her voice cut through the tension, sharp and commanding. Neither of you touches him, she said, looking from one side to the other for a long moment. No one moved then, as if some unspoken signal passed between the 2 groups. The firing began. Ethan dove to the ground, and Lyrina moved like a living storm, her enhanced speed making her almost a blur. She took down one alien with a swift kick, disarmed a human soldier in the same motion. The serum's effects burned in her veins, her movements fueled by raw power and something far deeper, the need to keep Ethan alive. When the last shot faded, the clearing was empty except for the two of them. The human soldiers had fallen back, and the alien warriors had vanished into the forest. Ethan sat up, breathing hard. That was too close, he muttered. Lyrina knelt beside him, her hand resting on his shoulder. They will keep coming, she said quietly, both sides. Until one of us is gone, Ethan looked at her, the glow in her eyes still burning bright. Then we keep moving, he said. She nodded, her grip on him never loosening, and together, they vanished into the shadows once more, the hunt for them far from over. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. The forest was silent now, but it was the kind of silence that felt dangerous. Ethan led Lyrina through a narrow animal path, their steps muffled by the damp earth. The moon was sinking lower, and the cold night air bit at his skin. Lyrina didn't seem to feel the cold, her heat still radiating through the thin space between them. Her violet eyes kept sweeping the shadows, watching for movement. After an hour of steady walking, Ethan spotted a dark shape ahead, an old, abandoned human outpost, half hidden by vines and moss. He approached carefully, checking for signs of life. Inside it was dusty and empty, the air thick with the smell of rust. It wasn't much, but it would give them shelter until dawn. They stepped inside, Lyrina closing the heavy door behind them. The glow in her veins was softer now, but it still pulsed in a steady rhythm. Ethan searched the room for anything useful and found an old storage locker. Inside was a cracked datapad, its battery low but still holding some power. He sat on the floor, wiping the dust from the screen. Lyrina crouched beside him, tilting her head in curiosity. "What is that?" she asked. "An old military logbook," Ethan replied. "Maybe it still has intel we can use." The datapad flickered to life, displaying a list of encrypted files. One caught his attention, marked with the same black skull and lightning symbol he had seen on the vial Lyrina had drunk from. His pulse quickened as he tapped it open. The file contained detailed notes about something called Project Pulsefire. Ethan scrolled through quickly, his eyes scanning the lines. The Serum, it said, was a combat enhancer created for elite human soldiers. It would flood the body with energy, sharpen senses, and boost strength far beyond normal limits. But there was a section in bold red text, warning, non-human biology will react unpredictably. Possible effects include heightened aggression, hormonal imbalance, and irreversible neural imprinting on the first human subject encountered. Ethan stopped reading, his stomach twisting. He didn't need to guess what neural imprinting meant. It was the bond he had been seeing in her every movement. The Serum had burned his presence into her instincts, making her focus on him above everything else. And the worst part, the file said the effect would become permanent after 72 hours unless neutralized with a counter serum. He checked the timestamp on the log. Based on when she had drunk it, they had less than 2 days left. If they didn't find the antidote in time, the bond would never break. Lyrina noticed his silence. "What does it say?" she asked, her voice calm but curious. Ethan hesitated. "It says, the Serum is changing you." She tilted her head slightly. "I already knew that," she said. "I can feel it." "No," Ethan said firmly, meeting her gaze. "It's more than just strength. It's making you attached to me. Like your mind and body think they need me to survive." She didn't look surprised. "I told you. I can't leave you," she said simply. Her voice wasn't desperate. It was just a fact to her. Like stating the sky was blue, Ethan leaned back against the wall, rubbing his face. "If we don't get you the antidote, it'll be permanent," he said. "You won't have a choice anymore." She moved closer, her presence warm in the cold room. "I don't think I want it gone," she said softly. Her words caught him off guard. "Lyrina, this isn't you talking, it's the Serum." She studied him for a long moment. "Maybe," she admitted, "but even before I drank it, You treated me differently than the others. You saw me as more than a prisoner." Before he could answer, a faint mechanical hum reached his ears. He moved to the cracked window, peering out into the night. 3 small human drones were sweeping the forest, their lights cutting through the trees. "They're closing in," Ethan said. Lorena stepped beside him, her gaze following the drones. "They will find us soon," she said, "and your people will not give me that antidote willingly." Ethan's jaw tightened. "There's a research lab in the mountains, about 15 kilometers from here," he said. "If they still have a supply of pulse fire, they'll have the counter serum too." Lirana's expression softened slightly. "Then we go," she said. "But I will protect you, no matter who comes for us." They packed quickly, a half-full canteen, a working flashlight, and the datapad with the serum files. Ethan pushed the door open, and they stepped into the cold night once more. The forest felt even more dangerous now, every shadow a potential enemy. But Lorena stayed close, her steps silent, her gaze always sweeping for threats. Hours later, they stopped to rest in a narrow ravine. The stars above were bright, but the air between them felt heavy with unspoken tension. Ethan leaned back against a rock. Exhausted, Lorena sat beside him, her shoulder brushing his. The heat from her skin was still there, a constant reminder of the serum's hold on her. "You're thinking about the antidote," she said quietly. "Yeah," he admitted, "because I don't want to decide your life for you." She looked at him with those glowing violet eyes. "Maybe you didn't choose this," she said, "but I did choose to stay with you. Serum or no serum." Her words lingered in the cold night air. Ethan didn't answer, but he couldn't ignore the truth. The clock was ticking. And if they didn't reach that mountain lab in time, whatever had started between them would be locked in place forever. Somewhere in the darkness beyond the ravine, a branch cracked. Lirana's head snapped toward the sound, her body tense. "They found us," she said. Ethan grabbed his weapon, and they both moved into the shadows, ready to face whoever or whatever was coming. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. The sound in the darkness grew louder. Footsteps crunched on the frozen leaves. Moving fast, Ethan raised his weapon, his eyes scanning the black shapes shifting between the trees. Lirana moved ahead of him, her body tense, her glowing veins brightening like warning lights in the night. 3 human soldiers stepped into the faint moonlight, their rifles raised, behind them. The soft metallic hum of alien armor followed. Ethan's heart sank. Both sides had arrived at the same time. The soldiers shouted, "Drop your weapons!" while the aliens barked something in their own tongue. Lirana didn't wait. "Run," she told Ethan. Her voice calm but sharp. He didn't argue. They broke into a sprint, weaving between the trees as plasma bolts and bullets tore through. The air behind them, branches whipped past, the cold wind biting Ethan's face. Lirana stayed close, her movements smooth and fast. Every time a shot came near, she shifted just enough to block the path, taking the danger on herself. The serum had given her incredible speed, but it was her focus on him that kept them both alive. After several minutes, they burst from the forest into an open slope. Above them, the jagged shadow of the mountain rose against the night sky. "That's it," Ethan said between breaths. "The lab's on the ridge." They started the climb, their boots slipping on loose rock. Below, lights flickered in the trees. Both humans and aliens were still chasing them. Halfway up, a drone appeared, its spotlight sweeping across the rocks. Lirana grabbed a stone and hurled it with impossible force. The drone shattered in a burst of sparks, but the noise gave away their position. Voices shouted below, growing closer. By the time they reached the top, Ethan's legs burned from the climb. The lab was a squat, reinforced building half buried into the rock, its metal doors hanging slightly open. Inside, the air smelled of dust and chemicals. Flickering lights revealed overturned chairs, shattered screens, and a cracked floor where an explosion had once ripped through. Ethan moved quickly toward the main storage room. "This place was abandoned," he muttered. But maybe the counter serums. Still here, Lirana followed, her steps careful, her gaze moving constantly between the shadows. Every sound outside made her flinch toward the door, ready to fight. They found the medical storage, rows of dusty shelves lined with small vials. Ethan's heart pounded as he searched through the labels. Finally, he spotted a container marked Pulsefire Neutralizer. The liquid inside glowed faint green. "This is it," he said. Pulling it down, Lirana stepped closer, her eyes fixed on the vial. "So, if I take that, I will be free?" She asked quietly. "Yes," Ethan said. "It will stop the serum's effects. It'll break the bond." Her gaze didn't waver. "And if I don't?" He hesitated. "Then the bond stays. Forever." The silence between them was heavy, outside. The distant sounds of boots and armor echoed up the mountain trail. They didn't have much time. Lirana looked at him for a long moment. "When I drank the serum, I didn't know what it would do," she said softly. "But I know what I feel now. And I don't want it to end." Ethan's chest tightened. "This isn't fair to you," he said. "You didn't choose this bond." Her lips curved slightly. "Maybe not at first. But I choose now." Before he could respond, the front doors slammed open. Both human soldiers and alien warriors flooded into the lab. Their weapons raised. Ethan shoved the vial into his pocket, pulling his gun. Lirana stepped in front of him again, her body a shield. The narrow hallway filled with the crack of gunfire and the hiss of plasma bolts. She moved like a force of nature, disarming soldiers, knocking weapons aside, and striking with precise, devastating blows. Ethan fought beside her, but it was clear she was the one keeping them alive. At one point, an alien soldier lunged at Ethan from the side. Lirana caught him mid-stride, twisting his weapon away and sending him crashing into the wall. Her glowing veins pulsed brighter with every movement, the heat radiating from her like a living fire. When the last attacker fell or fled, the lab was silent except for their breathing. Ethan leaned against the wall, the counter serum still in his hand. "Last chance," he said, holding it out to her. "We can end this now." She stepped closer, her eyes glowing softly in the dim light. Her hand reached up, curling gently around his. "You are my choice, Ethan," she said, her voice calm but certain. "The serum started it, but I will finish it." Before he could say anything, she pushed his hand down, refusing the antidote. Ethan stared at her, unsure whether to feel relieved or afraid. But when she stepped closer, resting her forehead against his, he felt the truth in her choice. Outside, the night was still dangerous, and the hunt for them would not stop. But whatever came, they would face it together. They left the lab side by side, moving into the darkness beyond the ridge. Her hand never left his, and her eyes never looked anywhere but forward. The bond was no longer just a side effect. It was their reality now. And in that dangerous, uncertain world, it might be the only thing keeping them both alive.